Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from the haram of Hussein, in the same way that Safa can never be separated from the mountain of Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mountain of Safa and Marwa to be from the sha'air Allah. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein to be sha'air Allah al-kubra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that between the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein, there is a land of mawaddah, there is a land of azar, there is a land of ishq, there is a land of junoon. This is the land of Bayn al-Haramain. So long as this haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein remains, people until the day of judgment will beat their faces and chests shouting, Ya Abbas and Ya Hussein. The divine decree of Allah is that from the land of Bayn al-Haramain, every time a tear is shed for Hussein, a tear is shed for Abbas. It is the divine decree that from Bayn al-Haramain, so long as there is a chant Ya Hussein, it will be accompanied with a chant Ya Abbas. The decree of Allah is that Abbas can never be separated from Hussein.
As lovers of the Ahlulbayt, we all have an inclination to the epitome of love. When we rejoice, when times are hard, whatever stage of life we are in, we all yearn to be in one special place. We all wish to visit the blessed shrine of Imam Hussein in the holy city of Karbala. Not all of us have the blessing to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein, but there is still a way to experience the sights and sound of the blessed land of Karbala in the comfort of your own homes.
We call upon you, dear viewers, to support us in our financial costs to help bring the Holy Land of Karbala beaming into your homes. You can support us with a monthly donation of just $50 or £30. We are your gateway to Karbala. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Imam Hussein TV 3.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, we do take in your live questions. If you have any question you'd like to ask in regards to any topic in Islam, please send in your questions via the WhatsApp. There is a QR code just over here somewhere that'll take you to the WhatsApp page. If not, you can call us in 0203 515 0199. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will send your questions to my little iPad here, and inshallah I'll be able to discuss and the Sheikh will be able to answer your questions. I'm your host Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing this evening, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah, great.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, let us begin with, if a fish falls out of water, or a wave throws it outside the water, or if the water recedes and the fish is left on the ground, can we consume the fish?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. If a fish that needs to be, which has scales, that's number one, by itself came into the seashore, for example.
Sometimes they jump out, isn't it?
Jumping, yeah, to the shore. In this situation, you have to catch it by hand or by a tool before it dies to make it halal to consume. Otherwise, if it dies by itself, you cannot touch it. So to make it halal, you have to catch it until it dies, for example, or by a tool, by a net, for example, until it dies. Because as mentioned in the Kutub al-Fiqh, that تذكية السمك إخراجها من الماء, that you have to, in order to have this تذكية of the samak, to make it halal, we have تذكية of the, let's say, the cattle, the sheep, the beef, the camel, the way in which we know that you have to use the knife, sharp knife, and so forth. But when it comes to the fish, to make it halal, you must bring it out from the water, or at least catch it in your hand before it dies. That's how it makes the fish halal to consume, and must be, of course, as I've said, with scales.
So you have to be part of the hunting process.
Exactly.
Not that you came upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Sheikh, we've got questions coming in from our viewers already. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Is it permissible, according to Ayatollah Sistani, to make dua for non-Muslims? My family isn't Muslim. Okay, we have a revert here who is a Muqallid of Sayyid Sistani, Hafidullah. Are they allowed to pray for non-Muslims, especially their family members and so forth?
In overall, ulama would basically would call or recommend to read dua for their hidayah and guidance towards the right path. That we ask Allah Azza wa Jal that may Allah Azza wa Jal guide them towards as-sirat al-mustaqim, sirat Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. In overall, that we may inshallah be guided towards this path.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from YouTube. Is it permissible to send salawat during prostration or bowing on our wajib salat? Sheikh, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do send salawat. Subhana rabbiyal ala wa bihamdih, Subhana rabbiyal ladhim wa bihamdih, Rabbi salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. No?
Exactly. I mean, that's part of the mustahab, in which we almost daily we would recite in every salah. The salawat is mustahab after the ruku', after the sujood, dhikr, in which one can do so and will, of course, gain more rewards.
Sheikh, when we have qadha prayers, should we prioritize them over the wajib prayers that are for the day, or is it okay to pray later? For example, let's say yesterday I missed Fajr prayer. So I did my Dhuhr, I did my Asr, I did my Maghrib, I did my Isha, I prayed Fajr in the morning. I still have that Fajr prayer outstanding. Should I pray it before the Dhuhr, or can I pray my Dhuhr, Asr, and then pray it? How does it work with qadha prayers?
Well, it's not mandatory and wajib to perform your qadha first. You can actually engage yourself with the current wajib salah, and then afterwards you can pray. Of course, the sooner the better one perform their wajib qadha salah, because you never know when one might depart this world and you leave behind, let's say dozens or months of salah you haven't prayed. And who can you trust? Your heirs, for example, to perform the salah for you, or to pay, to hire somebody to do so. One should be quick in terms of performing these qadawat of salawat, and to do the hasanat in overall before their departure from this world.
Sheikh, is the wet position on which a dead cat or dead rat has fallen regarded as impure from the opinion of His Eminence the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi, Hafidhullah?
Yes, indeed, it is impure when that, let's say, dead cat, for example, or rat, which is a mayta, falls inside a small, let's say, qalil water. In other words, a small amount of water that makes that water najis as a result. That you can't drink, you can't do wudu, and so forth. So yeah, it becomes najis. And they had this problem in the old days when there were no taps or running water. They used to bring, medium size or big size of jars with water to wash, to clean their clothes, and so forth. So sometimes they would find out a dead rat inside that jar, for example. So basically, yes, it's impure, one should avoid it, be it water or anything else that touches with wetness.
Sheikh, from one of our viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're both well. Wa alaikum salam. We are fine. Thank you very much for asking. My question is, what are the ahkam on interaction with transgenders? How we should greet them, and means handshake or greeting them with hugs, etc. Is it allowed or not? How men and women can interact with them in this regard? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Ameen. Sheikh, a very interesting question here. A transgender, someone who was a man, now is a woman, someone who's a woman, now is a man. When it comes to interaction, which ahkam do we follow? Do we take like what they were born as and use that ahkam? For example, if I'm a man and there's a transgender here who was a transition from a male to a female, do I assume she's a female? Is she still a male? Can I shake her hand or not? How does it work?
You see, we have an issue even in narrations mentioned that somebody who is, as mentioned in the hadith, khuntha, which is half man, half woman. Of course, that's ala kulli hal, an ailment in which needs to cure. So they would have to choose to be either inclined to the men's side or the women's side, to the female or the male. And then they choose one side and they become actually part of that gender. So if they are inclined to men, for example, then of course they become part of the male individuals. And there are signs the Imam mentioned, I don't want to mention now in this program. So to find out if he is or she is more inclining towards one of the sides in overall. So that individual would be, of course, a man if he chooses to be a man because of these signs, for example. But when it comes to what's happening now, that a full man with all the physical strengths and organs, which means that he's a man, and he wants to turn into a woman or a female, that's of course, there's ishkal, shar'i in this regard. Ulama would not allow it. So he remains a man. He's not a woman. He remains a man. So it's a problem, to be honest, with these individuals. Interaction and so forth, it's very difficult to deal with such individuals. They think they are now, for example, the opposite gender, but they actually still remain as they were born.
Sheikh, from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What evidence do we have that the Imam alayhi salam are superior to the prophets except for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How do we know that the Imam, especially Imam Ali alayhi salam, has a higher status than Prophet Isa alayhi salam, or Nabi Musa alayhi salam, or Nabi Yahya, or so forth?
You see, we have the hadith and we have the Holy Quran. In the Holy Quran, the holy verse of the ayat tathir, in which Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat 33, He would purify Ahlulbayt thorough purification. This thorough purification gives an indication that, of course, they are the best, the chosen, the best, and the best form they've been purified compared to other prophets and they are of course the best of the best. And of course the hadith, the famous hadith by all the Islamic sects, which says Kitab Allah wa atrat Ahlulbayt, that I leave two weighty things, the book of Allah and my progeny. Otherwise he would have said the book of Allah and the prophets, then follow the prophets. No, he says sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to follow my family, my progeny, the 12 Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. So clear indication, and of course other hadith with this regard, that for example Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi says that my father is greater than me, my mother is greater than me. We have this issue of who is the greatest, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the greatest, and then Imam Ali alayhi salam and onwards. So we rely on the Holy Quran and the Hadith to prove that, and that's not really ghulu or to actually create that means that that's not impossible. Allah Azza wa Jal Qadir Qadir Muqtadir. He can choose, even if they're vicegerents, to be even better than and greater than prophets, some of the prophets or most of the prophets. So that wouldn't be something impossible. When Isa alayhi salam had the power to raise the dead, for example, to cure the leopard and so forth. Allah gives these powers to the prophets, to the Imams alayhi salam. One should not really create or raise doubt with this regard, because this is something, if Allah is able to do it, then He would do it. Why not?
Another question here from YouTube. Sorry, from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Will I get a sin if I backbite on someone who is dead? To talk bad about the marhum or someone like that, or to backbite about the marhum, is this haram, Sheikh?
Of course, I mean, we have a statement which says "Uthkuru mahasin mawtakum," that mention the good sides of the of your deceased ones. So one should basically look at the issue in positive manner rather than the negative manner, of course. And Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who would forgive the sin of His ibad. So we have to ask for the forgiveness, and we do istighfar on behalf of those who passed away, in which Allah may bring His blessings inside their graves, and to be in peace and felicity with Muhammad wa Muhammad, inshallah.
Sheikhna, is the sweat of a Junub person who's in a state of janaba or of a haram act tahir or not?
Well, the sweat of the Junub, according to Ayatollah Shirazi, it's not najis. But as a ihtiyat, one should, for goodness, to treat it as najis, ihtiyat, because there are other ulama who would say it's najis. So for this purpose, it's better to avoid it.
Okay.
And then they have an argument about, can we pray with that clothes, which became wet through the sweat? Some would say no. Some would say no, it's fine. Like Ayatollah Sistani would say, no, you can't pray with it, mustahab, avoid it. But others would say no, it's salah is batil, for example. So there is a discussion with this regard, yeah.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, is the vapor or steam from an intrinsically najis thing such as urine or the garment that has become najis, which may form into drops on the wall or glass, najis?
No, it's tahir. You have now transformation to another substance, which is steam, for example, from liquid. So it should be okay, tahir.
Questions coming in from our viewers. Assalamu alaikum. Can I reveal a secret of someone who told me not to tell anyone after they passed away? So I entrusted you with a secret, I have now passed away. Can I now reveal that secret?
What we had in the past, some ulama who, for example, met Imam Zaman al Sharif, for example, or they had a secret, they would tell their, let's say, sons or daughters or students that, we saw this, we had this, but please don't tell until we pass away. With this clause, let's say, condition, you can't tell. But if he said permanently, or she said permanently, do not reveal the info, you should be with your, to respect that condition that he made or she made. Otherwise, one should do istighfar for this issue.
Shaykhna, assalamu alaikum. Any spiritual methods to calm down overthinking, overanalyzing, decisions, anxiety related from the Imam's Quran, etc.? Okay, so this person has issue with overthinking, overanalyzing decisions and anxiety. Any dua, anything you could recommend?
Of course, initially one should seek medical advice and experts in this regard. That's definite. And beside that, of course, one should go back to the ad'iyah of Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, or to the some of the verses of the Holy Quran. I was reading a hadith a couple of days ago that, for example, some of the acts in which one might bring that anxiety, brings that sadness inside one's heart, shouldn't do that, for example. We have some etiquettes in eating, drinking, wearing clothes. If you follow that etiquette, I think that anxiety would be reduced if you follow that etiquettes. Sometimes it's to do with that, not respecting those etiquettes or those manners in eating, drinking. That could have a side effect. Definitely. Mentally or psychologically.
Definitely. And there's other things, like you said, you're saying seek medical help. People sometimes have ADHD, or they have other mental conditions which force them to behave like this. And anxiety, they say, I think is because you're worrying about the future too much and not focusing on the present. Depression is that you're focusing on the past too much and not focusing on the present. So the reality is you need to focus on the present. And then there's many professionals and mental health counselors and life coaches and stuff to help you actually overcome these, and inshallah to help you succeed. Questions coming in, Sheikhna, from WhatsApp. Can I work as a bailiff officer? My job will be going to people's homes and entering without their permission and by force, and taking their personal valuables as money because they have not paid criminal fines or not paid rent to the landlord. Okay, it's not always a criminal fine. It could be a normal fine, which is a domestic issue, not a crime. But yes, Sheikhna, bailiff, someone whose job is they work on behalf of the government to retain loans or payments that have not been paid by certain people.
Best thing is to go back to your marja''s office and ask for permission from your marja' to permit you to do so. And you have to explain the situation, because some of these incidents, you have to see if it's really necessary to do so, for example. So, one should ask permission for these types of jobs.
So from YouTube, Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. I heard that you can make big money with selling drugs. My question is selling drugs haram? If yes, even if I sell them to non-Muslims. Selling narcotics, Sheikhna, or what we call intoxicating drugs, is this halal or haram?
It's absolutely haram, yes. You can't sell it.
Fair enough. From YouTube, Sheikhna, I would like to ask, what exactly is Eid Farhat al-Zahra and what are the differences with Eid al-Zahra? I think they're the same thing, just a different name, but Farhat al-Zahra, Sheikhna, is normally after Muharram and Safar, and after the istishhad of Imam Hussein Askari alayhi salam, we on the Maghrib Adhan, we welcome Farhat al-Zahra, and we celebrate. A few words, please, on Farhat al-Zahra. And is it the same as Eid al-Zahra? I think it is. It's the same thing. But the Shias, celebrate Farhat al-Zahra.
Yes, the same terms, Eid or Farha, in which on this day, and according to narrations from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, in which they have celebrated this day in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they were in the house, and it was the 9th of Rabi' al-Awwal, in which they were sitting and eating, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would smile to Hassan Hussein salamullah alayhi, he would say, Kula, eat, in which this day Allah, for example, took away your enemies and so forth. So he would mention this with regard to this Eid and its greatness on this day. That is, Ghadir al-Thani, the second Ghadir, and so forth, in which the enemy of Allah Azza wa Jal was killed today. The enemy in which he fatally wounded Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam between the wall and the door,
yes,
which was crushed. So to be killed on this day, of course, it brings a great joy to Fatima alayhi salam and to Ahlulbayt, and of course to their Shia as well.
Ahsantum. We have a phone call from one of our viewers. Inshallah, we'll be able to help them and answer their questions. Assalamu alaikum. You're live on Ahkam SOS.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Akhi, and to the respected Sheikh. My question is this, Alhamdulillah, I'm doing fine, my brother. I'm seeing a lot of things that are kind of like, I'm trying to understand our deen and the message of Islam. I've just tuned into your show and I've been watching it recently this week. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ never let anybody depict an image of himself. But with all due respect, brother, you've got obviously photographs in your studio of respected sheikhs. So I'm just trying to understand in what context.
Okay, so are you asking in regards to pictures in general or pictures of Rasulullah?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have it in our home. We don't have any photographs.
You don't have any photographs at home?
Family members, no, because it's,
okay,
our understanding is it's not really rahmat.
Okay, I'll ask the Sheikh now. Thank you very much for your question, brother. Take care. Sheikhna, having pictures of family members, children, your household, maraja that we have, even sometimes we have portraits of Aimma and Abu Abdullah Hussein, Abu Fadl Abbas, and so forth. The brother was saying that there wasn't any pictures at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or portraits and so forth. Does that mean we're not allowed to have these pictures?
No, we can have them, but the main issue is when it comes to the time of prayers and salah, one should cover them. So if you have let's say, picture of your son, or let's say your marji' or any picture of human being, with the soul, let's say, human or even animals, to cover that picture and then start praying. Otherwise, your salah will be makruh. In other words, you'll have less thawab compared to the full thawab because of that picture being in that room while you're praying. So that's the issue with regards to the pictures. Otherwise, they're fine.
Understand. Sheikhna, from YouTube, is selling animal sperm, specifically racing horse, haram? MashaAllah, what a question. Sheikhna, it is very, very common for animal breeders, if they've got a champion breed, whether it's dogs or racing dogs or like in this case horses and so forth, are they allowed to sell the sperm? Normally what they do is they don't actually sell the sperm. They will bring the females, they'll bring the male, they'll let the male mate with the female for the female to have the offspring, and hopefully it will inherit these genes from the father, and the father is probably a desired horse, whether it's for the height of the horse or the color of the horse or the speed of the horse or whatsoever. To charge for this, is that acceptable in Islam?
Well, we have to see if this transaction is a valid Shari'i transaction, because sometimes we have in the Shari' that you cannot sell or buy najis items in which unless it's for something useful. Let's say you're selling or buying dogs for the farm, for security and so forth. They put conditions with this regard. So we have to see how basically is this process of buying or selling the sperms.
Ahsan. From YouTube again, Assalamu alaikum. Commonly when performing salah we yawn. What should we do in this situation? Do we continue speaking whilst yawning or wait and then continue?
So is that inside the salah?
Yeah, inside the salah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah.
Inside the salah.
Yeah.
No, of course it's makruh to do so. One should avoid it in the salah time. So yeah, try to avoid it if you can. Maybe sleep well or rest sometime before the salah. We have this known as the qaylula. Qaylula means to sleep 10 minutes before adhan al-dhuhr. It's very famous back in the Islamic countries, in which they would sleep before or after dhuhr because of the heat wave. That gives strength for the one to continue his daily chores, and of course the ibadah would be also done better.
Awesome. Sheikh, now we have a caller on the line. Inshallah, we're able to help them with the inquiry. Assalamu alaikum. Your question, please, for the Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I have a question to ask the Sheikh. There's this type of coffee that would be consumed, or the original berry of the coffee would be consumed by an animal and then excreted, and that excretion of the coffee would be sold. Is that halal to consume, as it's quite expensive, and a lot of people drink it these days as well?
I understand.
So is this consumption of this kind of coffee halal or no?
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Cheers,
Thank you very much.
Coffee drinker there. He wants to know that there's a specific coffee, Sheikh, now. And the thing is, with this coffee bean, it's surrounded by poison. So you're not allowed to consume it until a cat comes and eats it, and it'll eat the poison coating and excrete the bean. So what they do is they take the beans from the excretion, wash them, clean them, and then grind and make coffee out of it. And it's a very, very expensive coffee. It's a luxurious coffee. Is that halal to consume?
Well, that basically is najis in anyhow. What comes out of the cats, the urine and the feces. So if it's a feces, it's najis. How can you consume a najis thing? Unless you have what is known as transformation, istihala, inqilab, all these mutahhirat involved chemically, in which, like the wine vinegar. It was wine, haram to consume. Now it's vinegar, you can consume. Because there was inqilab, there was a transformation from alcohol to vinegar. It's a completely different substance. And lost all the, in its way, all the effects of intoxication and such like, and najasa. So if it's the feces of such animals, of course it's najis. How can you consume it? That's my issue with these types of food or drink, for example, they make out of it.
Sheikh, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS. Don't go anywhere.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of scholars.
Is it permissible to plant trees by or over
Islam
the
established based on peace and non-violence?
Is it permissible to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim countries?
Is there an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on Ahkam SOS at imamhussein.tv.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, a show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, we are a live show with you taking your questions. MashaAllah, we've had so many questions. We've had a couple of phone calls as well. If you would like to send in your question, please send it in via the WhatsApp number, should be on the bottom. You can even scan the QR code over there and that'll take you to the WhatsApp page. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube Live, you can send in your questions in the comment section. Inshallah, the technical team will be able to send them to me on my iPad. If you want to call in, 0203 515 0199, and inshallah, you'll be able to get through to us and we'll be able to discuss and answer your question. Also, you can call via the WhatsApp number if you are calling in from internationally. It's not a problem whatsoever. Shaykhna, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I believe we're going to go to our Shia Plus video now. So inshallah, let's have a look at how we can help the Shabab in today's episode.
Boys, I'm just going to go get a coffee and come back.
Okay. Can I play on your computer?
Yes, but don't go on my files or my emails, please. Okay?
Online game. Oh look, it's a solitaire game. But can I play this game though?
The young Sayyid over there. Sheikhna, going online, playing free cell or any card game which doesn't involve money, but to playing a card game online, is this acceptable? Is this halal?
Many of our ulama today mention that to play card games, gambling games in any form, to be on the paper, on the cards or online or on TV, it's forbidden. No, one can't play such games even online or let's say by TV and so forth. It's forbidden because it's a gambling game.
Fair enough. More questions coming in from our viewers, Sheikhna. And Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask, if someone masturbates during fasting, does he have to pay kafara? If he does several times, then will the kafara be paid only once? Okay, so let's assume this is for Ramadan, Sheikhna. As far as I know, as soon as you make the intention to invalidate your fast is batil. So as soon as the niyyah has changed from fasting to breaking the fast, your fast is gone. Whether you did the act or not, as soon as you change the niyyah, your fast is batil. After that, performing, one of the disqualifiers of fasting with masturbation, if you knew or you didn't know, I don't think is the issue here. If you know it breaks the fast or he doesn't know it breaks the fast, I don't think that's the issue. However, there is a kafara to pay for it, Sheikhna. What is the kafara? And if someone has done it more than once, is it only one kafara to pay? Or is it per penalty per fast broken?
Yes, we have in the fiqh that if somebody breaks his fast with haram, then there's the kafara to jama', the collective kafara. In other words, you have to free a slave. Of course, we don't have any slaves today, so that's waived. You have to fast 60 days consecutively, صيام شهرين متتابعين, and then you have to pay 60 poor individual to feed them, basically. إطعام 60 مسكين. So you have to do these two because you actually broke your fast with haram act. With regards to repeating, I can't remember the mas'ala, so inshallah we'll check it later.
Inshallah, no worries. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Do I need to mention in my marriage contract that I'm divorced? I don't. Well, I guess you must mention that you are available to get married, that you are single. Do you need to tell someone that you're divorced, especially when you're getting married to them? Must they stipulate that, oh, I was married at one point, I'm a divorcee?
Not really. It's just that if you're allowed to get married, there's no obstacles in terms of, let's say, if that individual is virgin, for example, which needs permission from the father. No, there's no condition that you have to mention that I'm divorced. Unless they ask for example. You have to be, of course, open with this regard. That I'm a divorcee, for example. Not to hide something, and then they discover after the marriage, and then you have a dispute with this regard. So no, you can just say, I want to get married, and that's it, unless they mention it.
From YouTube, Sheikhna. Sheikh, I would like to ask, what is the mainstream position of the Shia on Abu Lu'lu? What was he right in doing what he did?
Of course, what Abu Lu'lu did, rahimahullah, was praised by the Imam alayhi salam. That what he did, he will be deserved to go to paradise as a result, because he brought joy to the lady of paradise, Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha. So of course he brought joy to Ahlulbayt alayhim salam as well, because always when the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal, they get killed and they get the punishment in this world, of course there's a joy. يفرح المؤمنون,
I think this is from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum. What is the difference between Ziyarat al-Warith and Ziyarat al-Ashura when it came into existence? Ziyarat al-Warith, Sheikhna, is ziyarah for Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam, and Ziyarat al-Ashura is obviously particularly a ziyarah to the Abu Abdullah Hussein and the shuhada that was with Abu Abdullah Hussein. And I mean, there's a lot of recommendations in regards to performing both Ziyarah Waritha and Ziyarah Ashura. And Ziyarah Ashura specifically on Yawm al-Ashura is very, very significant. But Shaykhna, main differences between the two, when did they come into existence?
Yeah, basically, Ziyarah Ashura is for the day of Ashura, but we still have recommendations that to recite it every day if one can do so. Ziyarah Warith, mainly they recite it on the eve of Friday, Laylatul Jum'ah, Thursday night, to visit Imam Hussein Salamullah alayh from near or from distance. Of course, the main difference that Ziyarah Ashura is filled with la'in compared to Ziyarah Warith. Warith, it has la'in, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But the main thing about Ashura is mainly براءة زيارة, in other words. وَلَعْنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً وَلَعْنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً قَتَلَتْكَ إلى آخره. So it's to do with mainly exposing the enemies of Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi, and what they did, and the one who prepared, the one who who rode the horse to come and to fight you, Salamullah alayhi. So it's to do with tawalla and tabarra. And then you have at the end of the Ziyarat Ashura, you have la'in first, Allahumma la'ana wal zalim, and then you have assalamu alayka wa abdillah. So you have la'in and then you have salam as well. So that shows is it tawalla and tabarra in this ziyarah, very clear and visible.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum Shaykhna. Are Zaydis and Ismailis followers of Ahlulbayt? How do they differ? Good question here, Shaykhna. Shaykhna, the Zaydis and the Ismailis do not follow the traditional 12-verse Shia pattern. Some go off with Zayd, the son of Imam Jafar Sadiq, I believe, and some go off with Ismail, another son of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, and continue the lineage of Imams through them. Are they still qualified as followers of the Ahlul Bayt?
You see, we have in narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that if someone rejects one of us, as he rejected all of us. So that's not a complete following of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. There's incomplete aqeedah. You know, when it comes to Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, they don't go and visit. Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, they don't go and visit. So that's an incomplete aqeedah, which Allah of course would not accept. Can you, for example, be a Muslim but reject the Holy Quran, for example? You can't.
Yes.
Or be a Muslim and then you reject, for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to believe as a complete package of aqeedah from A to Z. You can't just do half and leave the other half. So that's an incomplete aqeedah. And Ahlul Bayt mentioned in the narrations that we reject that. That's not acceptable. You have to have a complete belief in all Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam.
Next question from YouTube. How much is the kafara if I break a qasam in Allah? Okay, when we have another, I believe it's another or a qasam. I'm not sure if it means if they say wallah and they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Or if it is another where they say I will perform this, I will do this and such and such. If this act happens, I'm not sure which one it is. But Shaykhna, what is the kafara if for qasam?
If one says wallahi or billahi or tallahi, I will do this, and he doesn't do it, of course there's a kafara of paying 10, feeding or clothing 10 faqir or poor individual. So 10 individuals, you feed them or you clothe them. That's the kafara.
Okay.
10 fuqara.
Do you know what roughly that would be in the UK if we were spending money? How much that would be?
How much it costs to feed somebody, for example?
Minimum £2.50, £3.
For example.
If in Africa it would be even cheaper, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
MashaAllah. From YouTube, how many times did the Prophet invite the 40 of family, and was each time included? Was Abu Lahab included each time?
3 times.
3 times, okay.
In which, at the end, he said, "Who would support me? You Azarun, to become my vicegerent and supporter." Of course, when Imam Ali stood up, they laughed and they left the majlis. That how come the child takes over the leadership of the ummah, of the Arabs or the Muslims, when we are the the heads of the tribes, for example.
Yes.
So they showed how arrogant they are.
Shaykhna, how far do you have to travel for namaz to be qasr? I guess had the tarakhus, I guess, and traveling. It is 13 miles in one direction from the border.
I mean, they mentioned in kilometers, so it's 22 kilometers to go and 22 to come back, so 44 in total. If you have this distance, then your salah and fast will be, of course, broken. Yeah.
MashaAllah. Sheikh, more questions coming in from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. This one's from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Sometimes I perform the adhan in prayer, but I don't perform the aqama. Is there an issue with that, or do I have to perform both?
It's mentioned that if you do the adhan, then do the iqama as well. It's highly recommended. But what is important that if you do the adhan, after it should be the iqama and not the vice versa. You can't do the iqama first and then the adhan. Anyhow, these are mustahab acts before salah. The wajib is the salah itself.
We have a YouTube question here, and I think this is from someone who's not a Shia. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Alaikum salam to you. What's the hikmah behind Imam Hussein radiyallahu anha shahadat? Was it a sacrifice that had to happen? I don't understand. First of all, we don't say radiyallahu anhu with Abu Abdullah Hussein because we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is radi with the Ahlulbayt 100%. We say alayhi salam. The sacrifice that had to happen, this person doesn't understand the shahada. So I guess a lot of people don't understand the philosophy behind Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam going to Karbala. Abu Abdullah probably knew what was going to happen, but he still went towards the lands of Iraq. He brought his family with him, he brought his friends and so forth. Sheikhna, in your own words, what was behind the movement, the protest, what was behind Abu Abdullah going towards Karbala and sacrificing everything he had?
I mean, initially the brother needs to go back to
Could
some
be
of
sister,
the books, or sister, to go back to the books of with disregard about Karbala and the tragedy of Karbala, for example, and read those small pamphlets about the Imam Hussein's movement, salamullah alayh, and the cause of this movement. So one needs to get some broad knowledge with this regard about why the Imam uprised. That's the first thing. And number two, if they can listen to some of the lectures in Muharram, for example, to understand the meaning of this uprising against the oppression. They shouldn't forget that, of course, after the Rasulullah's demise sallallahu alaihi wasallam and departure from this world, things changed and happened. And as Anas mentions, Anas bin Malik, that even the salah is being changed as well. They mentioned that, they narrate that even the salah has been changed. Some pray it hand folded, some pray it, straightening their hands on their laps. So even the salah, they have changed it. And this is because Bani Umayyah and the sons of Abu Sufyan took over, and they declared as a kingdom by Muawiyah, then his son Yazid. And of course, it was very clear that Yazid, when he came to power, he started the corruption. He used to drink alcohol. So, and he of course enforced the bay'ah on everyone, especially the elite of the community, like Abdullah ibn Abbas, like Imam Hussein salamullah alayh, other individuals in Medina, in which the Imam refused to give bay'ah to a corrupt individual. So he had no choice between to give bay'ah to a corrupt one and to be na'udhu billah in humiliation state and dhillah, and he said hayhat min ad-dhillah, far away from me, humiliation, or to sacrifice. There's no choice. And we have now, we see that, for example, many uprising, for example, Palestinians against in oppression, for example, and they get killed, and they're shuhada, they call them shuhada. So why do you have to raise doubt when it comes to Imam al-Hussein, the master of the youth of paradise? Somebody who is the grandson of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, who has knowledge, who has ilm, who has this greatness. So we have to appreciate that. The Imam stood up and he uprised, as he mentioned in his khutbah, his son before leaving towards Karbala, that I stood up لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي, that I stood up to bring islah, to bring reform in the nation of my grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because there was lots of corruption as a result of Umayyads destiny and kingdom as a result.
Ahsan, Sheikhna. More questions coming in. YouTube. For women, I was told to have both hands on chest when praying. Now I see women praying with their hands beside them. Please confirm the correct method for women. Sheikhna, I think it is allowed for women to put their hands on their chest like this, but they're not allowed to fold, but to have it separate like this as a form of being humble and humility, as well as praying with their hands by their sides. Sheikhna, can you confirm that? According to our Shia fiqh?
I have never heard or read something like that. Usually we pray with our hands straight on our laps.
Okay, no problem. From YouTube again, Sheikhna, I would like to ask, how do we prepare ourselves for the arrival of Imam Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappearance?
Well, as the Imam Ali alayhi salam, he said in one of his sermons, أعينوني بورع واجتهاد وعفة وسداد, that help me with some, with piety, with struggling. We need to observe taqwa, in other words, to implement the wajib and the mandatory acts in our life, be it with the ibadat, with the worships, be it with the transactions, giving the huquq Allah Azza wa Jal, huquq al-nas, paying our debts and so forth. And on the other side, to avoid and reject the muharramat and the forbidden acts and evil acts, as well as the evil manners, bad tempered and so forth. We try to practice as much as we can the akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the Quran states, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that you have great means of morals, high status in morals. We try to practice that morality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his akhlaq. That's the main thing for us to prepare ourselves for this great day and event. As well as, of course, one should inform and educate his loved ones, his children, his brothers, if he has some knowledge, for example, or send them towards a place to study or to learn ahkam and so forth. That is how we prepare ourselves for this great day, inshallah. Wa nahnu ma'ah, inshallah.
Inshallah. I mean, we have many occultations in previous generations and previous stories in the Quran as well. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was in occultation. Hazrat Khizr still is in occultation. Nabi Yusuf was in occultation. And, the people stayed with the religion, performed their wajibat and mustahabat as much as they could. And the main thing was that they prayed for the occultation to end. They prayed for their savior to come. I think it's very, very important that us as a Shia Ummah collectively continue to pray for the safety of our Imam, for the happiness of our Imam, and inshallah the return of our Imam, so that we can, establish Allah's hukum on earth and finally have justice on earth, inshallah. Sheikhna, thank you very much for your time and for your efforts, and thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If I didn't answer your question, I do apologize, and we will be answering them on next week's episode, which will be on Monday, 7 p.m. here on Imam Hussein TV. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please send it in via the WhatsApp. There's a QR code there. You can send it in via the WhatsApp throughout the week, and inshallah we'll be able to do our research. And if you have a question in regards to the opinion of a certain marja, tell us the name of the marja. We have contacts with the official representatives and the official offices, and inshallah we'll be able to get your answer. Until then, please take care. Have a good weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In today's hadith of the day, I'm going to share with you a saying from our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him and his family, which is recorded in Biharul Anwar. The Holy Prophet advised, when making a decision to do something, think about its outcome. If it's good for you and for your advancement and development, then follow it. But if it is misleading, leave it out. Life is full of many ups and downs and many important decisions which must be made, many of which can be scary at times and make us uncertain. Here, the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, is giving us a very simple advice: to reflect on each decision we make and not to make decisions with haste. Much like many motivational speakers tell us today, the Prophet told us 1400 years ago that we should do things that help us advance in life and develop our character. And he tells us, if the decision will lead to detriment, not to do it. It may sound like simple advice, but in these hectic lives that we live in, it is a reminder to pause and reflect on decisions we make, however big and however small. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
With more and more victims of war and poverty, the Middle East has seen a surge in patients seeking medical aid. Iraq alone has 2.4 million people without access to any form of medical assistance. In Afghanistan, due to the lack of funding and devastating conflict, the health service is at breaking point. Imam Hussein Charity aims to help provide a better future for these impoverished patients, aiding them with finances for their prescriptions as well as dialysis of their kidneys. You can help our brothers and sisters with purchases of prescriptions for just £20, and for £200 help a patient with a dialysis procedure. To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from the haram of Hussein, in the same way that Safa can never be separated from the mountain of Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mountain of Safa and Marwa to be from the sha'air Allah. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein to be sha'air Allah al-kubra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that between the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein, there is a land of mawaddah, there is a land of azar, there is a land of ishq, there is a land of junoon. This is the land of Bayn al-Haramain. So long as this haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein remains, people until the day of judgment will beat their faces and chests shouting, Ya Abbas and Ya Hussein. The divine decree of Allah is that from the land of Bayn al-Haramain, every time a tear is shed for Hussein, a tear is shed for Abbas. It is the divine decree that from Bayn al-Haramain, so long as there is a chant Ya Hussein, it will be accompanied with a chant Ya Abbas. The decree of Allah is that Abbas can never be separated from Hussein.
As lovers of the Ahlulbayt, we all have an inclination to the epitome of love. When we rejoice, when times are hard, whatever stage of life we are in, we all yearn to be in one special place. We all wish to visit the blessed shrine of Imam Hussein in the holy city of Karbala. Not all of us have the blessing to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein, but there is still a way to experience the sights and sound of the blessed land of Karbala in the comfort of your own homes.
We call upon you, dear viewers, to support us in our financial costs to help bring the Holy Land of Karbala beaming into your homes. You can support us with a monthly donation of just $50 or £30. We are your gateway to Karbala. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Imam Hussein TV 3.
أنا لا راتب ولا عندي